Hey guys, let's talk about something important today. Why do banks freeze your accounts? Why is my account frozen? The bank won't tell me why it's frozen. These are key important questions that affect us, especially if you've got one bank account or this has never happened to you before. It's an important question to address. So today we'll discuss why it happens, how to avoid it, and perhaps how to make sure you're not in that position again going forward. And that's important, okay? So about myself, obviously, if you're new to the channel, I'm Patrick. I'm, the CEO of Orukka, Payment Ring, so fintech, right? And before this, I've been in banking for 20 years, and I've just started this just to build my own platform. So I know what I'm talking about, and I've worked in various parts and aspects of the bank, so I know how these things work and why these are done. So it's frustrating, I think, but I'll start from the most simple thing about this, which is it happens to everyone. And even the best of us, Trump, it's happened to. Head of, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon has never always been the head of the bank. So when that's happened or he's gone to another bank, he's been blocked. Okay. It happens a lot more than you realize. And it's always frustrating when that happens. Okay. So I suppose for us, the question would be to find out, why. Okay. And it gets worse because banks don't have to tell you, they're not legally obliged to tell you why that's happened. And so, you're stuck, you're stranded, and you're trying to get answers. It's frustrating when that happens. And it's happened to me as well, right? If you relocate to a country, the bank don't know you that much, it happens, okay? So let's start from maybe the first thing on why this happens, okay, to banks from a bank's perspective. So think about it. So last year or 2 years ago, um, Citibank got fined $400 million, and that was because of irregularities around payments, irregularities around payments and transfers and how things were not reported. Okay. The same thing as what happened to Bank of America recently, and also I think they got fined about quite a few million. UBS, PNB Paribas. So these banks get fined heavily. So it's good to understand that one, they're as nervous as you are in terms of doing things wrong. Yeah, and the same as well with our fintech. If we don't do the right thing and for some reason we take the wrong people on, or we don't spot irregularities, or we don't report, you get fined. We would get fined as well. So it's that fear that we need to understand that banks are as scared as you are of doing things wrong, and that's why these things happen. Okay. Um, so I think the first thing to say is, banks don't have to tell you why, and then the reason is why, right? So if you look at it, um, typically an investigation goes on, okay, and when an investigation starts, you're surprised, a bank is not, it's just like any other investigation, right? If you're being investigated by the cops or by FBI, you're told not to tell anyone about it. So that's the downside with banks, right? So banks, whoever is beside that phone call gets nervous as soon as the flag comes up. All they see is a flag, right? And then the reason behind it. And we'll talk about those reasons, okay? So based on that, they turn around and they either get nervous or tell you, I can't tell you anymore. And then they're allowed at least a minimum amount of days to investigate. It could be 10 days, it could be 12, it could be months, which is quite frustrating, okay, for anybody, okay? Especially if you're on the other side of that line. And it turns out you don't know, okay? So that's a problem which I think we need to find out why. So our question now becomes, why would the bank do this, right? So it's simple, right? So the first few ones are easy, okay? You can always tell when things are wrong, okay? So the first one is wait, why? Simple, suspicious activity, okay? So the first one could be, terrorist financing. If it's clear that it's terrorist, black and white, they can tell, okay? If it's because of tax reasons, so tax reasons, again, is clear. Usually they can tell you, hey, that's because the tax authority has asked us to withdraw these funds. That, that's black and white. It could also be because of a court case, a legal case. That's always given as well, because you can either tell from the notes and then they will tell you that straight away, which is a good one, okay? Those are easy to talk about, right? If your account is frozen for a specific reason, right, those reasons are usually legal, accounting, or some sort of, penalties or things placed on by the government, which is clear, and they will tell you straight away as well. Um, and obviously, if you are politically exposed as well, if you're close to the government, they will tell you as well. In fact, you're supposed to tick it on your phone that you're one of those, and with that, what will happen is your account is tracked a lot closer. Okay. So if you're on this video, I don't think you're any of those, because usually you would know, or if you don't know, they'll tell you straight away, because those are black and white. Yeah, the teller or the operative or the operations or the customer service rep would be able to tell you that. These guys are quite genuine, so they can see and they'll tell you. But if it's anything outside that, they don't know. Or they can't tell you, or it's been escalated and they need to wait and there's nothing they can do, which is quite frustrating. Okay, so the typical things, again, I've said this already, suspicious activity. So anything around money laundering, terrorist financing or suspicion, right? And this suspicion could be anything. So that's the point. It could be crazy in terms of the numbers of what could happen. Okay, so it could be anything from just every amount that comes into your account, maybe it's always $1,000 every month, and then suddenly one month it goes up to $10,000. That's an irregularity that will get spotted straight away these days. And for us, we use AI. Okay, so a lot of banks use AI. They've been using it for a while. If it's not AI, we've been calling it RPA, which is robotic process automation. So in general, all of these have been in process for a while. So what it does, it flags that. That's all you get. Get a flag. It's flagged, and then it goes to this person. This person looks at it, and if it's a slight light amount, the threshold that they can approve is so tiny. If they can't do that, they need to escalate it. And escalation takes months, okay? Because one, imagine a typical bank. As small as we are, I can tell you it takes a while to investigate these things manually. So imagine then if you have a big bank like, JP Morgan or Citibank or Bank of America, Bank of Ireland even, and any of the small banks in a tiny island, it still takes 10,000 customers, 20,000 customers. Imagine having to escalate 1,000 of those. So there are people manually checking these things, which takes forever, right? And that's painful for anybody to have to wait. And obviously with these things, you call and you check and you ask and you just never get a response. So that's one thing to watch against, right? So that, understand, right, that these things happen. They need time to investigate it, and they're not even sure of the answers themselves. So while you're frustrated and shouting at the person behind that phone, and they don't know themselves, and they sort of need to pass that on to someone higher behind an office, a desk, who's trying to understand themselves. So is there a better way they can do this? Of course there is. Then there's also simple things as well, like purchase of crypto, for instance. So crypto is another high risk in material. Crypto, if they see for some reason you're linked to a country that's been on the sanction list, that comes up as well. If you're buying a precious metal, gold, believe it or not, so gold, if you buy pure gold from some activities or some countries, even any country at all, but gold, precious metal is seen as an ability to transport or finance terrorism. So those are always flagged as well. So anything that I think is that they think, okay, and it's up to you. It could be normal to you, okay, but the fact that you've never done it before and suddenly you do it. So if for some reason you opened up an account, they ask you, what are you going to use this account for? And that's a way of taking your profile into consideration. And if it turns out that you're using it for a salary account, they expect your salary to come in from an employer. And that's all they expect. That's your income and outcome, okay? They can tell these things. And for some reason, when that flags out, because you got a payment from crypto for 5 times the cost, that's a flag that gets blocked. Oh, wait, you just got a payment for a house. It doesn't matter what's behind it. It's just a number that's gone up. The number's gone up so high, it's going to be flagged. Even though it's clear to you, because obviously it's your account, you've been planning it for months, that's a solution already. If you're planning it for months, you knew it was coming. They don't know. So it's a surprise and they need to block that. And why? Because they will be fined, as I said from the start. So that's important to know, firstly, what could trigger these things, right? So it's just be, again, an irregularity in terms of how things work. So how do you stop this, right? So the first things first, I've said this from, just a few seconds ago. Tell your bank, okay, talk to your bank. Your bank knows what's coming. They onboarded you. They want to know, and it's not from them, it's the government, it's the regulation, right? They need to know what's coming in and what's going out so that and they can avoid and protect you as well. Because if you look at it, if someone goes in and robs you or tries to take your money or scams you, they have to step in to protect you as well. So if for some reason you've never ever sent money to, I'm going to say Nigeria, right? So I'm Nigerian. If you're in New York and you always spend your money around New York, and for some reason they see money going into my country, Nigeria, they'll be like, wait, what's happening there, right? And that gets flagged, okay? And they want to protect you in case there's a scam behind that, okay? And that's what usually happens. And that takes weeks as well, because you have to go in, check where the money is going to, check why you're sending it, check the recipient account, and see as well if they've tried to, again, blackmail you one way or the other. So they try to protect you with these things. And it takes a while to understand and figure out what's happening there. So that's key, that if you're sending money or receiving money that's out of the ordinary for you, you should tell your bank in advance. Okay, listen, I'm sending money to Nigeria because I want to invest in this country, or because I'm going to, going on holidays there and I need this. You can tell that to your bank already. If they know that's happening, that's coming. Okay, and then they realize that, and that your account does not get blocked. Okay, so that's one. Secondly, as well, is obviously when they do come in touch with you and tell you, provide information. So I see a lot of people going in and say, "Oh yeah, it's my money, so I don't need to." Well, if everyone said that, then believe it or not, they will be fine anyway, right? So I said it from the start already. Banks get fined, they get monitored by the regulators. That they also need to monitor what's going in and what's coming out to make sure there's no irregularities, there's no terrorist financing or suspicious activity going on. So in line just with AML, you just need to let your customer, your bank know in advance, provide information when they do ask. So if they ask and say, hey, where's this going? Just give them the information. Here you go. This is where it's going. This is where it's going. And I've seen some silly cases where, a bank would turn around and ask for too much and ask for the date of birth and passport number of the person that's receiving the money, things like that. I think, one, it's the customer service who just is being silly. So for that, you can call them out and say, hey, this is what the funds is for, and this is where I'm going to, this is what I'm going to use for. I don't have the person's passport number. You can explain that and just call those information out. And hopefully you should be able to get your money back. Fingers crossed. Obviously, if not, you can let me know. Put them in the comments. We'll try and reply as well and try and give some insights. There's really nothing much you can do when it comes to AML and money laundering as well, because truth is, there's a gray line between protecting you, reporting to the authorities, and then also hindering you, right? So that's important to understand. And then the last point, if everything fails, you should always talk to a lawyer. Hopefully you don't have to, because lawyers are expensive, and lawyers also take the same amount of time, to actually investigate, get into the case and then try and resolve the money, and to perhaps take a percentage of how much you're trying to claim. If it's a small amount, then it's most possibly not even worth getting a lawyer for. But it's always good to try and get a lawyer, especially if things are going downhill and it looks like it's been blocked for a while. Um, and then also, obviously, the second to the last point is to make sure, number two is that you always plan in advance. It's silly to say, but it's important. Okay, so I had a video here where I talked about, sorry, I talked about how to split your accounts and make sure you don't have one account. Okay, so, and I'm gonna say it again. Okay, you're not married to your bank. Yeah, when you have a wife or a partner or a husband, then you're devoted to that one person. Okay, it doesn't work this way with banking. So don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. Don't put all your bank accounts in one place. Okay, make sure you diversify. You have 2 3 accounts. You have your payment account. Your salary comes in. You have your call it subscription account if you wanted to. You can have that separately where your direct debit goes in and out of. You can have your pay yourself account, which is basically like a payment ring where you can go in and spend wherever you want to, tap and pay, for coffee, restaurants, things like that. Because if for some reason your main one account gets blocked, the subscription account remains. Subscription account gets blocked, guess what? You still have your payment account to make payments from. So please, I can't say it enough, diversify your accounts. Don't have one account for everything, okay? Because it's always going to cause a problem. If your bank doesn't block it, the bank could go down tomorrow. If they don't go down tomorrow, for some reason, something could go wrong. So please diversify your account and have multiple accounts. Watch a video on that. If not, just search YouTube. There's a lot on how to diversify. Have a multiple account for savings, retirements, everything. Nothing should be in one bank account. And if that happens, hopefully, then something like this gets blocked. You can carry on with day-to-day life. If the account gets blocked, guess what? You can still have your payment ring to tap and go to work, to buy your coffee and relax for a couple of weeks until that gets resolved. So it's important to make sure to diversify your risk, diversify your money, and how you spend your cash. Other than that, I think that's it from my side on this topic. So just to summarize again, guys, I'll repeat it once again. When your account gets blocked, it's not because the bank are trying to steal your money. It is, and neither is it the case that they are not trying to call you a thief or a criminal. That's not the case. It's most likely to protect you. The frustrating thing is just how it's said, which is always a pain. So they need to say this thing, and that's where training comes important. I try and talk to my team and staff on this one as well. How you portray information is important, especially when it's critical for one person, right? The person has gone in, has tried to withdraw money from the account, and there's no money there. So that person is not coming online or picking up the phone to say hello to you, and they don't want to hear anything hazy. So you need to be clear, black and white. Hey, this is what's happening. Unfortunately, this is all the information I have to hand, but we'll come back to you in X amount of days. Give time when you expect to get feedback. Some people just say we don't know, or come back in a few weeks, months, or just give a false promise. You don't want that either. Okay. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. I hope I've been able to answer that question, right, on why this happens, why banks block, and then freeze accounts. It's done for a reason, and then with time you can always still get the money back. If you don't, like I said, just sue them, get a lawyer. Especially where for some reason you can't pay your rent, or you can't pay your car bills, or you can't get into work, you can always sue them. There's insurance for that. Especially all banks are protected against that, so you can always sue there as well. But that's it for me. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us on this lovely, lovely, cold morning. Take care. Evening, actually. Bye.